Shalom. Today I want to talk about Jewish time versus modern time. Damn it, we can optimize time, or maybe we can't, but we can always sanctify time. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel famously wrote that Judaism is a religion of time rather than of space. We live, he said, not in pursuit of holy places as much as holy moments. Cathedrals can be built from stone, but Judaism's greatest cathedral is time itself. That is an idea that's difficult to fit with our modern sensibilities because we inhabit a society that treats time very differently. Modern life will tell us that time is money. Time must be managed, time must be saved, time must be optimized. Every spare moment can be productive, every delay should be eliminated. Every task should be streamlined. Our phones can count our steps, our watches monitor our sleep, and our calendars are filled with color-coded commitments. We're encouraged to become increasingly efficient versions of ourselves. And efficiency certainly has its place, but Judaism asks a deeper question. What happens to the soul when every moment is optimized instead of sanctified? What happens when we measure our days only by output and not by meaning? In this week's rhythm of Jewish life, we're reminded that holiness often begins not with activity, but with interruption. The Torah introduces Shabbat with startling simplicity. At Exodus 31, verse 15, 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest, sacred to the Lord. Notice the wording. 6 days shall work be done. Not you shall do work, but work shall be done. The rabbis notice this subtle difference. Human beings are not commanded to conquer every moment. The world does not depend entirely upon us. There comes a time when work simply stops. And Shabbat is not a reward for finishing everything, because nothing's really ever finished. There are always emails unanswered. There are always dishes in the sink, always problems unresolved, always another item that is on the list. And yet, Shabbat arrives anyway. As Rabbi Heschel observed, Shabbat comes whether we are ready or not. And perhaps that is its genius, because Shabbat teaches us that our worth does not depend on our productivity. We are human beings, not human doings. Modern culture fears empty spaces, and Judaism protects them. 3 times a day, Jews can pause to pray. Morning, afternoon, evening. These interruptions are almost inconvenient, which might precisely be the point. Prayer can remind us that we're more than workers, consumers, and problem solvers. We stop long enough to remember who we really are. Even mourning follows sacred time. When someone dies, Judaism does not say, take whatever time you need. Instead, it gives shape to our grief. Shiva, Shloshim, a year of mourning, Yartzeit. These periods do not erase our pain, but they do honor it. Judaism understands that grief cannot be hurried. Healing has seasons. The soul requires rhythms. Modern life often asks mourners to get back to normal as quickly as possible. And typically in work environments, you're given 3 days for an immediate family loss. Jewish tradition gently says, no, sit, cry, remember, receive visitors, say the Kaddish, carry the memory, allow time itself to be a companion. And the same is true for joy. Our festivals arrive not because we've earned them, but because our calendar says it is time. Passover comes and asks us to remember liberation. Shavuot invites us to stand again at Sinai. Sukkot asks us to leave our sturdy homes and dwell beneath the branches and the stars, even when we're busy, even when life is complicated, even when we are distracted. Sacred time interrupts ordinary time. Perhaps that is why the first mitzvah given to Israel as a people was not about theology or ethics. It was about the calendar. In Exodus 12, this month shall be for you the beginning of months. Before possessing a land, Israel possessed time. Empires controlled territory, but the Jewish people learned to sanctify days. Kings rise and fall, borders change, yet every week, Friday evening arrives. The moon renews itself. The festivals return. And generation after generation, Jews gather around tables. They light candles and proclaim that time itself can become holy. There is another aspect of Jewish time that feels almost revolutionary. The Torah commands sabbatical years. Every 7th year, the land itself is to rest. Debts are released. Agricultural activity ceases. The earth gets a Shabbat. Can you imagine proposing that today? A year without maximizing output? A year that acknowledges limits? Our modern economies speak endlessly about growth. But the Torah speaks about restraint, because endless growth is not always life-giving. Even the earth requires rest, and so do we. Now, burnout, that has become one of the defining illnesses of our age. People are exhausted, not because they're weak, but because they've been taught to live as though they are machines, always available, always connected, always producing, always responding, always optimizing. Yet our Torah insists that limitation itself is holy. God creates the world in 6 days, but creation is not complete until God stops. Rest is not the absence of creation. Rest is part of creation. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught that if we do not allow ourselves time for stillness, we may lose our ability to hear the quiet voice of God. And people today are certainly not lacking in information. We're actually drowning in information. What we lack is silence. We lack pauses. We lack spaces in which wonder can emerge. We know how to scroll, but do we know how to stop? We know how to consume, but do we know how to notice something? We know how to connect digitally, but do we know how to be truly present? Elijah discovered God not in the earthquake, not in the wind, not in the fire, but in the kol demama daka, in the still, small voice. Stillness itself became revelation. There's a beautiful midrash that imagines God saying to Israel, "My children, I have a precious gift in my treasury, and its name is Shabbat." Not achievement, not wealth, not success. It's a gift. And let us note that gifts cannot be earned. They can only be received. And maybe that is what we as modern people find the hardest, receiving, resting, just being, trusting that the world will continue without us, trusting that we're loved even when we're not accomplishing something, trusting that we will not lose out because we momentarily stop, trusting that God values our presence and not merely our performance. In many ways, Jewish time resists the tyranny of urgency. Not everything that is urgent is important. Not everything important is urgent. Friendship, prayer, study, grief, wonder, love. These things cannot be rushed. Children grow slowly. Trust develops slowly. Wisdom ripens slowly. Faith can deepen slowly. And perhaps our souls heal slowly too. Ecclesiastes reminds us for everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. Not all times are the same. Not every season is meant for productivity. Some seasons are meant for healing and some for waiting, some for celebration and some for letting go. When I was a young girl, there was a game called, "What time is it, Mr. Wolf?" The person designated as the wolf would answer, 5 o'clock, or whatever time they would say. And we players would advance closer by that many steps. By contrast, the Jewish answer to the question, "What time is it?" is never merely a matter of clocks. It's a matter of meaning. Not simply what hour is it, but what is this time asking of me? Is this a time to work, to rest, to grieve, to rejoice, to pray, to forgive, to begin again? Jewish life teaches that holiness is found not in doing everything, but in discerning what kind of time we're living in and responding faithfully to it. Because time is not merely something to spend. It is something to bless, and maybe the deepest challenge of our Judaism in this age is this: a successful life is not one in which every moment has been optimized, but one in which moments have been sanctified. A life in which there was time for Shabbat. There was time for prayer, time for tears, time for joy, time for family, time for memory, time for God. And in learning to sanctify time, perhaps we discover that it is time itself that sanctifies us.